Thomas Nelson is a publishing firm that began in West Bow, Edinburgh, Scotland, in 1798 as the namesake of its founder. It is a subsidiary of HarperCollins, the publishing unit of News Corp. The most successful title to date is Heaven is for Real, which became the first title to sell more than 1 million ebooks. In Canada, the Nelson imprint is used for educational publishing. In the United Kingdom, it was a mainstream publisher until the late 20th century and is now part of another educational imprint, Nelson Thornes. British history. Thomas Nelson, Sr., founded the company that bears his name in Edinburgh in 1798, originally as a second-hand bookshop at 2 West Bow, recognizing a ready market for cheap, standard editions of non-copyright works which he attempted to satisfy by publishing reprints of classics. The company gained its sons when William and Thomas Jr. entered the father's business in 1835 and 1839, respectively. Thomas Sr. died in 1861 and is buried in the extreme NW corner of Grange Cemetery in Edinburgh. William concentrated his talents on the marketing side, while Thomas Jr. devoted his to editing and production. The firm went on to become a publisher of new books, and, as the 19th century progressed, it produced an increasingly wide range of non-religious materials. By 1881, religion accounted for less than 6% of the firm's output. The Hope Park Works in Edinburgh burned down in 1878 and the City Council allowed temporary accommodation on the meadows. In appreciation, the company funded the stone pillars at the east end of Melville Drive. William Nelson died in 1887 and Thomas Jr. died in 1892. They were succeeded by George Brown, Thomas's nephew, who directed the company until Thomas III and Ian Thomas Jr.'s sons were able to join him and John Buchan as partners. Buchan, employed by the firm until 1929, dedicated his novel The 39 Steps to Thomas III in 1914. Ian Nelson took over as head of the family firm after Thomas Nelson II's death in action in 1917 during the First World War. By the early 20th century, Thomas Nelson had become a secular concern in the United Kingdom. The First World War led to the temporary rundown of Nelson, through the denial of foreign markets, the loss of manpower, and the general exigencies of wartime, and initiated its long-term decline. Much of the effort expended during the interwar period represented merely an attempt to reverse the decline, particularly in expanding the education list and reducing the dependence on reprints. Ian Nelson remained head of the firm until his death in 1958. Ian Nelson's successor, his son Ronnie Nelson, seemed less interested in the successful management of the family firm than previous generations. In 1962, Thomas Nelson and Sons was absorbed into the Thomson organization in an effort to sustain its academic and educational publishing interests on a global scale. The printing division of Nelson's was sold to the Edinburgh company Morrison & Gibb in 1968. Until 1968, according to the curators of a Senate House Library exhibition, the company specialized in producing popular literature, children's books, Bibles, religious works and educational texts. Quote, "It was the first publisher for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle." Thomson owned the company from 1960 until 2000. That year, it was acquired by Wolters Kluwer, who merged Nelson with its existing publishing arm, Stanley Thornes, to form Nelson Thornes. Original American history. The American branch of Thomas Nelson was set up in 1854 in New York and, by the 1870s, it was one of the city's most important firms. It held the copyright for the American Standard Version of the Bible from 1901 until 1928, when it transferred the copyright to the International Council of Religious Education. In the 1930s, the company made a deal with this council to publish the Revised Standard Version. The firm was sold to the Thomson Organization in 1960, and in 1962, the company failed to meet demand for this Bible translation. This, in turn, led the National Council of Churches to grant other publishers licenses for the work, leading to a dramatic fall in revenue for Nelson. Current United States company. In 1950, 19-year-old Sam Moore came to Columbia, South Carolina with an intent to pursue medical training. Moore began to sell Bibles door to door in order to pay his way through college at the University of South Carolina and later Columbia Bible College. The Lebanese immigrant had a strong sense of American patriotism and free enterprise and used it to establish the National Book Company in 1958. In 1961, he established Royal Publishers, selling stock in the firm a year later, with notable shareholders including Morrow Coffee Graham, mother of noted evangelist Billy Graham. Moore led Royal Publishers to success for the next 5 years, more than doubling sales every year, and resulting in the Thomson Organization asking if he would take control of Nelson's North American operations. Instead, Moore surprised Thomson by offering to purchase Nelson. Moore took over on March 7, 1969, preferring to keep the company's name and logo. In Canada, the brand continues as Thomson Nelson, an educational imprint. In the 1960s, Thomas Nelson moved its headquarters from New York to Camden, New Jersey. It moved again to Nashville, Tennessee in the 1970s. From 1979 to 1982, Nelson developed the New King James Bible and under Moore began diversifying the company with a gift division. In 1992, Thomas Nelson Inc. began its modern advancement. Nelson purchased the Word Music and Books brand from Capital Cities, ABC. In 1997, the company split the two, spinning off the record label and printed music division, one of the largest church music companies, to Gaylord Entertainment. That led to a lawsuit by Gaylord in 2001 over the Word name, and was settled when Nelson renamed the book division the W Publishing Group. That year also led to a corporate expansion by the purchase of the Cool Springs and Rutledge Hill press labels. In 2003, World Bible Publishers was acquired by Nelson, and also the fiction label Westbow Press made its debut. Also, an imprint for internet news source WorldNet Daily made its debut that year. The agreement dissolved, however, after 2004, and the former WND brand is now under the Nelson Current brand, including its authors. Thomas Nelson, now based in Nashville, publishes leading Christian authors, including Billy Graham, Max Lucado, John Eldredge, John Maxwell, Charles Stanley, Michael A. O'Donnell, Ted Decker, John Townsend, and Dave Stone. Thomas Nelson Inc. in 2000 began marketing the Women of Faith Conference, a concept devised by author Stephen R. Taburn in 1995, after attending a church conference in Atlanta. As of 2013, the Women of Faith Conference is one of the best-known women's events around North America, attracting more than 400,000 women annually. In 2005, Thomas Nelson launched the Revolve Teen Conferences, built on the Women of Faith model. Michael S. Hyatt, a 25-year veteran of the publishing industry, became president and CEO of the company on August 18, 2005, succeeding Sam Moore, who served as the company's CEO for nearly 47 years. In February 2006, it was announced that private equity firm Intermedia Partners, in conjunction with some other investors, had agreed to buy Thomas Nelson for $473 million. The transaction closed on June 12, 2006. The company operated as a private company. In 2010, a group led by Kohlberg and Amp Company bought a majority share of the company. In 2011, News Corporation subsidiary HarperCollins announced they had acquired Thomas Nelson. The acquisition closed in July 2012. Canadian history. When Thomson sold Thomas Nelson UK, it kept the Canadian operations of the publisher as part of the company's education division. Thomson Education was spun off as Engage Learning in the United States and Canada in 2007. The Nelson name lives on through the Canadian company, Nelson Education Limited, an educational publisher. In 2015, Nelson Education was handed over to debt holders, which included Ares Management, Citigroup, Madrick Capital Management and Sound Point Capital Management. Bibliography. Cumberland snaps up conservative-leaning series from Nelson in the Tennessee. The 19th of October 2004. Private equity firm buying Thomas Nelson in Nashville Business Journal. The 21st of February 2006. Dempster, John A. H. Thomas Nelson and Sons in the Late 19th Century, A Study in Motivation, Part 1, in Publishing History, 13, 1983, pp. 41-87, Part 2, in Publishing History, 14, 1983, pp. 5-63. Moore, Sam. American by Choice, The Remarkable Fulfillment of an Immigrant's Dreams. Nashville, Nelson, 1998. Tebble, John. A History of Book Publishing in the United States, New York and London. Boker, 4 volumes, 1972-1981.